What's up, everybody? This is Ricardo Rodriguez.
And Matthew Messick.
And this is
the Profits Over Wages podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Profits Over Wages podcast, where we do weekly interviews with highly successful business owners and entrepreneurs. We discuss life, business, and entrepreneurship to bring forward the lessons learned from success and failure, and most importantly, have fun while doing it. On episode 31 of the podcast, we talked to Phil Singleton. He is a web designer, SEO expert, and award-winning author. He is the co-writer of SEO for Growth, an Amazon bestseller, and author of a WordPress SEO plugin that has been downloaded over 100,000 times in the last year. He's also the founder of Podcast Bookers and host of the Local Business Leaders podcast. On this episode, we talk about podcasting, personal branding, and why it's important, what mistakes small business owners make when it comes to SEO and what to do about it, and why you must look at your website as an asset and not just an expense or an unknown brochure, and much, much more. Enjoy the show. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Totally, I'm excited.
I actually had somebody reach out to us for you to be on the podcast, and I believe that you owned a company that of the person who reached out to me. I think it was Podcast Bookers, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
How long have you been doing that?
Well, it's just really, I've had my own digital agency for a while, and certain things have worked for me. In fact, really the only thing that I do right now for what we do is I just do what works for me, and I basically package that up and resell it. So I just got interested into podcasting finally last year, but before, setting up my own show seemed like a little bit daunting. Mm-hmm. So I said, hey, you know what? I saw some info on people getting guested on other shows, and I was like, I'm going to try this. And I did one, and I was completely blown away by how many benefits that there were to the to being a guest on somebody's show. Way beyond gaining access and that stuff. There's all sorts of SEO benefits that came out of it. And I was like, I kept doing them. I've done about 70 now. And I think by the time I started to actually get clients from it, because that was the last thing on my mind, I was like, I have to work this into my system and start to sell it to people because it's working so great for me. So I partnered with the guy, John Jantz, who's kind of a marketing guru in his own right, that I wrote the book with. And we kind of have done this under the umbrella of the book project that we've done. And it's kind of it's one of these things where it's a side, another entrepreneurial venture that's kind of getting a little bit of legs on its own type of a deal. But that's how I got into it. I was like kind of stumbled in it, and I was like, holy cow, I've been doing digital for 12 years. In terms of the amount of time that you put into doing something, I think guesting on other established shows has the biggest bang for the buck of anything out there.
Because you're co-branding. I mean, you're essentially, you could double or triple or quadruple your audience and just by being a guest on the right show.
Well, and there's so many things that end up happening. I mean, you get on somebody's show, right? You get immediate access to their audience. I mean, that's the thing that everybody looks at. But I think most people kind of have their blinders on and think that's the only benefit. Well, you get on somebody's show, and the first thing that happens in a lot of cases after it launches is, they do a whole show notes page, an episode page about you on the show. Well, I've been doing SEO for a long time, and one of the things that still is popular today is something called guest blogging, where people will go up and write good content and try and place it on other websites, mostly to earn a good backlink back, and Google counts that a lot. So if you get good ones back to your website, it used to be about volume, but now it's about getting really good backlinks. It's a really hard way to get a link, is to go out, write a whole post, and then try and pitch it to multiple sites. It's spammy, it's difficult. Right. You don't get a lot of benefit off of it. But here, if you get guests on somebody's show, the whole episode's about you. The whole episode note and blog page is about you. It becomes almost like this personal branding thing. And then the production value is a lot higher, because it's almost like it's a little launchable piece of content. So you're up on there. It's about you. You get the personal branding. You get episode show notes. If you're smart about the things that you talk about, you can get the right backlinks in the right places by strategically talking about resources so they get linked back to the site. And that all stuff kind of helps. One of the things that's really helped me is, I try and bring some of my best ideas and things every show that I'm on. Mm-hmm. And I actually, at the end of each show, will ask the host, hey, did I do a good job? And I'll send them a review funnel like you guys will get. And 9 times out of 10, I get a review up on LinkedIn or Google+. Well, my Google+ reviews have gone up by I've got 130 reviews. Well, 30% of them are hosts saying I was a good guest on the show.
Oh, cool.
So I've been able to do that, and then you can repurpose. So there's so many things you can do with like being guested. I was like, holy cow. It just keeps on giving, type of a thing. So that's why we came up with podcast bookers, because, if I've got clients now that we're doing these things for, if I can get them guested, they almost start to do some of our homework for us.
Yeah.
We get them guests on the shows and they're promoting themselves. It's nice and shiny for them, but they're actually helping their personal branding. They're earning backlinks. They're getting exposure to somebody's audience and somebody else's social media channel. And the ones that are really smart about it, like I wish I would have been in the beginning, is I wish I would have had my own podcast when I started 70 shows ago, because you have a lot of great listeners right now. And some of them might be like, I like what Phil has to say. Does he have a podcast? Well, I didn't. So I couldn't send them anywhere. And if you could pick off a few listeners because they like what you had to say, I could have had a pretty big audience by now just by having a podcast earlier, which I now just started earlier this year. So that's another benefit, to getting leverage on somebody else's show. So that kind of thing, the gift kind of keeps on giving. But I hope I didn't go off on a tangent.
No, it's perfect. I mean, it's some of the things that we've actually noticed ourselves as well. And, like you were saying, like before, it used to be being a guest blogger, right? And you had to spend, I don't know how many hours writing a blog post, like you said, and then sending it out to people. And if you're not a good writer, then that you're not gonna get guest spots. But I was doing a podcast, is you're just pretty much answering questions. It's like It's super simple
and it's natural. And you make a relationship. And another thing that I've done is a lot of shows don't transcribe the notes from the show. So the very first one that I was on, I asked the lady, the host of the show, if she transcribed it. And she said no. And I said, well, at my own expense, can I transcribe it and then put it on my website as a guest blog post?
I actually noticed that because I was checked before we got started. I was doing a little bit of research, and I noticed that all your podcasts are transcribed, and you have the entire conversation on the page for that podcast episode.
Yes.
Kind of talk about like some of the benefits for that, because we don't do that yet. So
I didn't even think to do that.
It just sounds like a lot. It just sounds like a lot of work, man.
Well, you go to first of all, a couple of things. One is Google loves long form blog posts. So I think in 2014 there was a study where the average, I think number 1 to number 3 spots where the average page length was over, I think it was about 2,500 words. Wow. So that's hard, man. You mentioned like writing. People are maybe not good writers, but even when you have to write it, like even if you're a bad writer, it takes so much time to do that kind of stuff. So. And you have to think about it and do it. And like if you're just talking in a podcast or whatever and transcribe it, a lot of that stuff comes out naturally. And then what ends up happening, like you saw on my site, I just have rev.com, rev.com. You guys have probably heard of this one. It's a human transcription service, and they pay you $1 a minute. So like for $30 on a 30-minute transcript, I can get a 5,000 word essential blog post. Now I go through it, and you'll see on mine where I put quotes. I'll actually put some on-page SEO, which to me is like adding some cross links on it to other pages on my site, putting some quotes in. I put a picture at the top.
Right.
I put headers on it. I do things that make it look like a blog post, and I try and clean it up a little bit.
But it ends up being one giant.
Yeah, just dump. A thing that doesn't make any sense. So I try and dress it up a little bit. But each show that I get right now, I get a 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 word, blog posts on it. But the one I was getting at the beginning was the first one that my first guesting campaign, I transcribed her show notes because she wasn't going to use them. And now if you type in Google, like the SEO benefits of podcasting or podcasting SEO benefits, that transcription from her show comes up number 1 on Google on my website.
That's hilarious.
Now she's got backlinks to it because I say the original one was here, so she's got she earned it off. It's all about her and that kind of stuff too. But people just don't, that's the one thing I think that's beautiful about SEO is it really, if you study how Google goes out and like grades websites and ranks them, they go out and they try and reach in, look at so many different factors that it starts to get me, and I think people that are in SEO thinking about like a multi-dimensional approach. So again, like a lot of times people do podcasting, they're just thinking about the podcast launch. They're not thinking about, oh, I can get backlinks, or, oh, I can, say certain things on the show that are going to help me out, or, oh, I can use this to get more reviews. If you kind of think about it strategically, there's so much more value you can squeeze out of it that can give you like 10 times the ROI than if you just go after I'm going to do the show and launch it and move on to the next one type of thing. And that's another one of the reasons we started Podcast Booker. So I was like, I don't think any service out there is really focusing on all the extra, just like they're grabbing the one piece of fruit off the tree and leaving all these other pieces on there type of deal. And I was like, well, we can do and get our clients and ourselves so much more benefit if we kind of work in a process that almost squeezes every piece off. For me, even on that other piece where you're asking for the reviews after every show, it's helped me a ton because, I got one from like John Lee Dumas and other guys out there that said I was a good guest. Yeah. And then as part of our outreach, we put some of those in there, and then they'll say, this guy was a good guest. Well, it kind of helps us get more and get up the chain.
It's like a snowball effect.
Exactly.
If we could talk a little bit about for those people who are not too familiar or don't know what SEO is, if we could kind of talk some of the basics about SEO and why it's one of the important things to do, for your company and business.
Yeah. So SEO is search engine optimization. And search engines, when we talk about them these days, it could mean Bing or DuckDuckGo or some of these other smaller ones, but for most of us, it means Google because they're the 800-pound gorilla. So for me, SEO means anything that you can do to your website or your web presence that improves the chances that when somebody searches for something, that your web presence, your website will come up as a result of a Google search. So that's the short name for that is SEO. It's got kind of an interesting history because from the first 15 years or so of Google's existence, I think it started in like 1999. In order to do well on Google, it was a lot of like almost like spammy things, where people stuffed keywords onto their website or tried to create lots of web pages on their website, or did like volume-based backlinks where they tried to get lots of websites to link back to their website, and it just had to do with volume. So like people trying to just get like Russian whatever website that they could get pointing back, and the more they had, the better chances they had to rank up, because Google was really only counting for a long time these two things.
Right.
How many things are you doing on your website and how many backlinks are you getting? More or less. There were other things. But, about 5 or 6 years ago, Google really changed the whole thing, because they told us content was king for a long time, but we in SEO kind of snickered because we were like, well, you say that, but we're doing these little things and that's what's moving the needle. But about 5 or 6 years ago, they totally changed their algorithm, the way they rank things. And they said content was king, and they meant it this time. So guys like me that worked on SEO and never had a blog, I didn't ever have my face on my website. I was able to just have a phone number and no address, and people would contact us, and was able to like collect checks and help people rank without ever having to even talk to them. That's how SEO was for a long time. Then Google changed the algorithm and made it more punitive and started to look at, oh, you've got backlinks that looks like you bought, or they have no reason to be pointing back to your website. We're actually going to start penalizing you. Well, once Google did that 5 or 6 years ago, they really cleaned up SEO in general, SEO services, and they brought a lot of offshore spammy things back onshore, and people started to do the right things. Now you see websites like mine out there, and everybody's working on content. They're working on good websites. The people that are getting results from Google are working on their website. They're putting their best content in there. They're blogging. They're creating ebooks. They're working on their reputation management. They're building communities and doing things on social media. Stuff that really didn't matter 5 or 6 years ago on Google matters a lot now, and that's how things have really changed. But that's really what SEO is trying to figure out what is the formula, what's the recipe that helps you get more Google results. Because I basically, people look at Google, I don't know if they look at it the way I do, but I think it's a true monopoly. Yeah. And I think it's not like this place, people spend a ton of time on social media, and they spend a lot less time on Google, but the time they spend on Google is really important because it's part of the purchase process. Where this is recreational and social time, when I want to buy something, I go back to Google and look it up and study and do my own resources. So it's a lot less time. So to me, it's actually become part of the purchase process. And it's really hard to do. Oh, Amazon too. Google, yeah. Amazon. In fact, it's funny. I did a speech the other day, and I was telling people, what the top 4 most valuable companies on the U.S. stock market right now is. It's Apple, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. That's like the whole internet. It's like mobile device. It's like every, it's like, and those are the four most valuable companies like the world right now. It's pretty funny. Yeah. But that's it. Yeah. So but to me, the reputation management, that has to do a lot with Amazon. You go to Amazon now, nobody really buys things unless they start looking at the reviews, right? So it all kind of, funnels.
I actually just bought something on Amazon, and I was looking at one and didn't have any reviews, so I didn't buy it. And then so I went with one that had 600 or something reviews. It just makes sense, right? If 600 people are talking about it, it must be good, right?
I think that's how we buy everything now. You're looking for a painter, you look on wherever, on Yelp or Google, you're looking online, you want to buy something on Amazon, you rely on the reviews. You want to go in a restaurant or travel, maybe you look at TripAdvisor. It's all like, it's such a review-based culture. And to me, that's what, for myself and like some of our clients, let's say, to me, the holy grail is being able to show up in Google and some of the other places, and then also having the reviews. So if you have a good web presence that shows up and people are searching for it, and you also have a lot of reviews to back it up, I mean, that's what really makes the phone ring and helps to, it doesn't almost matter what you're doing entrepreneurial. To me personally, I just think it's really hard to avoid an SEO strategy for most businesses. Some can get away with it, but I talk to some people that are like, we do really well and we get a lot of business on Instagram. Well, yeah, you do, but it doesn't mean you couldn't get more business on other channels or through SEO and that kind of stuff.
So say for something like a podcast, how would you get reviews if it's not on, just on iTunes? Would you ask for people to go to leave reviews on the website, or?
I would, I do think it's kind of, I look at it so different because I think iTunes reviews are probably, important. Yeah. But I try and build up my listenership right now. I'm not really depending so much on iTunes, the reviews on there. I'm really depending on more how the people that I'm interviewing, how not to say aggressive, but if they're hopefully they're out there promoting it in their network. Because I think the best way to get is like me. I'm going to be on your show. I'm going to go promote the heck out of it because I'm very proud to be on that kind of stuff. And I'm probably going to send you more listeners than people just randomly searching on iTunes for another. Right. So that to me is a better strategy. But I think any chance, any of us right now, no matter what, and I tell this to our clients as well, you basically have to look at every interaction that you're doing as a chance for some to kind of document their experience with you. So if you can get a chance to be like, hey, I'll get a review. Yeah, put it wherever you want to put it on. If it were me, like for my podcast, I'd probably try and get people to put it somewhere that's more visible, maybe up on Google, maybe up on LinkedIn, and then cherry pick the ones that are good and then reuse them on your website somewhere because somebody said something about this particular topic. And like I've done, like I said, we use part of our reviews, we cherry pick them and use them in part of our outreach for, say, guesting and that kind of stuff. But I think podcast, because this is a great opportunity. Like right now, the one thing about guesting or having your own host is whether or not anybody's listening, this is a great opportunity for the three of us to meet each other and it's all of a sudden you're making this connection for 20 or 40 minutes. Yeah. I think that's a huge benefit too that people don't realize, because there's lots of things I've done with people after the fact. Webinars, hosting, things that have kind of gone on and led to other things.
Did you have a question or?
No, I was just agreeing.
Oh, okay. I thought I was waiting to talk. No, but I was going to ask you, when it comes to like small businesses, because you work with small businesses as well, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you think would help them, be more searchable on Google? Like, what are some of the top things that small business owners should do to be, up there on Google when somebody's searching for, I don't know, whatever business is, a restaurant or a shop or, something?
There's a couple things in there that are super important. I think the one is that most business owners, pretty much everyone that comes, like finds us or whatever, most people still have this mentality where their website's kind of like a digital brochure. Mm-hmm. It's like this static thing that they got to do once, and it's like a sunk cost of doing business, but they'll do it once and they'll set it up, and it's basically just static and almost kind of sits there and kind of dies.
And everything on there is like 5 years outdated.
Exactly. and then if they do anything, which drives me nuts, then if they do anything, they'll put their very best content up on like Facebook or somewhere else where it kind of has a little bit of real-time place to kind of go under the river and catch some eyeballs. And then it just goes away and fades away and dies. Where to me, all your best content should be on your website and then shared out to social media so people get a little taste of it. And then they have to come back to your website. Mm-hmm. So the mistake is, and the way to really build up your SEO equity is to treat your website like it's your marketing platform. and make it the referral source for all of your content, and share out things from there and make them come back. Because when they come back to your website, you can do things like pixel them with a little piece of code so that you can then stalk them on Facebook again. Or there's AdWords has a little remarketing code where, people stalk you online with these little ads that follow you. That all happens because people are coming back to your website. But when they come back to your website, you can give them your email list, you can give them a call to action, you can sell them something, but you always want them to come back to your website, whether you're doing other things online or even advertising on, I get guys that are sending these things, cards in the mail. Well, this doesn't really work anymore when you send mailers out because it creates demand, but the guy's not trying to send me back to his website. And if I need tree service, I'm just going to look up who the best tree service is online, so who has the most reviews. So this, the print stuff and the traditional things, they create demand and remind us that we need to buy stuff, but almost everybody goes back online to finish that purchase process. And I think people don't realize that when we look at things and we see things on TV or in print, or even when we get a word of mouth thing, I used to get a word of mouth referral from my dad or my doctor and go right to that person who they referred to. Now I look them up online before I call them, you know what I mean? And if the reviews suck or their websites suck, I choose somebody else. So that's the thing I think all businesses, a lot of small businesses do, is they don't treat the website as an asset. They don't nurture it with content. They don't see it like that. They kind of see it as an expense and not as like an investment that can create money and create leads for them. And that's one of the things we try and do to educate folks is, look, no matter what these days, we are all internet companies because everything I think filters back to the internet at one point in time. And you got to make sure that your website's kind of a living, breathing thing and don't just treat it as like a brochure that sits out there. You got to refresh every 2 or 3 or 5 years, make sure that you're putting your best stuff on there, and anything that you do from a marketing, push them back to the site so that you can, and when you do this, you start to build up SEO equity, right? You're building more content, you're building more pages, you're making people come back, they're getting social signals, they're getting reputation management signals, they're getting real traffic back to the website, the pages are building up. So just because you treat it as that marketing platform, it kind of naturally grows in importance, and then all of a sudden Google crawls it more. Because again, they're not going to crawl your Facebook post, they're going to crawl a page on a website. So that's the big takeaway there.
So if you're sharing something from your website on Facebook, or if you should be sharing the actual website like link or URL to get people from Facebook to go to your website.
And they look almost the same, right? If you got a featured image or something, you can put an image back on there and say, put the gallery back on your site, make them come back.
We've actually noticed though, we've done some tests, and I feel like a picture gets more likes and comments than a link does. Typically on Facebook.
Well, say on Facebook though, you can put, the way I've been doing it recently is I'll share the link out, but then they still enable you to put an image up on there. So it actually looks like not even just like the snippet image, like a full image. So when they actually click on the image, it comes back to the website. So you get the benefit of both, right? Because when they tap on it, click on it, they go back to the website to see the full picture. But I agree. When you get the picture, it's going to be...
The picture that's posted is an actual picture, or is it the picture that's inside the box where at the bottom it says the actual link, and then it goes back to the website?
So if you have a featured image on, say, a blog page or something, and you just share the link on Facebook, I think normally it'll pull up a mini thumbnail.
Yeah.
But if you go ahead and use the same link and then actually attach an image to it, a full image, you can do this, right? You can put a full image attachment to the link, and then you get the benefit of having that full picture that's going to get more engagement.
Yeah.
There'll be more likes on the post. But if they click on that image, it sends them back to the website. So you at least get the chance. Whereas if you don't do that, there's no digital trail back to the website. They're never going to get back there. They're just going to stop at the picture or whatever.
So what are some of the top things that Google looks for, or is it just a combination of everything?
It's a lot that they look at. But the main thing is, if we get people just in a habit of putting their content and documenting on their website, and that's a first big step. But if you look in terms of things that they look at, well, there's on-page things right where you've got, and I'm going to give you this one takeaway and one example because it's one thing I've been talking about a lot recently, which is Google has an army of about 10,000 people called Google Search Quality Evaluators, and they literally pay these people, I don't know, somewhere between $10 and $20 an hour to manually check search results all day, just spot checking things. So it's a manual check of the algorithm to make sure like people are, and there's like 10,000. So they've got this really cool document that they've had for a while, but they just released 2 years ago to the public, and not many people know this, but it's called the Google Search Quality Evaluator Guidelines. So it's like 5 words: Google Search Quality Evaluator Guidelines. And if you Google those 5 words, first thing that comes up is this PDF that's directly from Google. And it's a guidelines. It's 160 pages that tells you exactly in great detail what Google is looking for on your website to determine if it's a quality page and it should rank it. So the answers, to me, I saw it. The first thing I was like, well, it's almost like you're in high school and you got the answer. Exactly. I was going to say, it's like you almost got the answers to the test. And I was like, should I be looking at this? But you can look at the first like 2 chapters of you're going to read the whole thing. It's 160 pages. My favorite thing about the document, though, is that it's not written for like rocket scientists. This is like regular people looking for extra money type of a thing. So it's pretty. And you know that if Google released this, I mean, there's no accidents in it. They're specifically, but They get into huge detail. They say you must have, you're looking for a robust About Us page. So they want you to have a full About Us. And they specifically say, you need to have an About Us page. It can be just a paragraph. You want to look and see who's behind the company. And they want to see things on your website like a real phone number and an address. And they actually say this one abbreviation like dozens of times. And they say EAT. It must have EAT. And EAT is expertise, authority, and trust. You're looking for this evidence on every page you go on, because this is how we want our algorithm. We want to be able, to use technology to pull these out of the pages to determine if we can rank them. So then they specifically get into what do we mean by expertise, authority, and trust. We want to see blog posts. We want to see people committing to content and putting a good amount of content on the website. We want to know who wrote it. You want to make sure that you've got testimonials and reviews on there, sources of community. There's all these things they break down. They basically tell you the answers. And it's all the things we've already been talking about. So, but again, most people, when they build websites, digital brochure. Here's a pretty design. Here's what we do. A lot of times people won't even put the address. You'll see a contact form. They won't see the address on there, a phone number. You don't a lot of times see association badges or all the stuff where they should see it. But the way I look at it anymore is when somebody lands on a web page on your website, you're trying to, they're looking for an answer or a reason to choose your product or service. I mean, you got to give them all the evidence that you can in like 20 or 30 seconds that makes you the choice over somebody else. And those are things that are like expertise, authority, and trust. So if you can show reviews and all these things, all that social proof on there, the things that your customers need to make a decision to buy for you are the exact same things Google's looking to have on the page so they can rank you, right? And it's really, when I say this, it doesn't really mean so much because it's like, okay, I'm on the show, I've written a book, I'm in SEO. But when you've got a document that like says here, this is exactly what you need to do, that's
from
it.
Google.
So,
exactly. Google, yeah.
Exactly.
So if you want to like increase the SEO on your site, probably the best thing would be just find one of these guys employed by Google, say I'll pay you $25 an hour to just scrape my site. They already know they do it for a living.
Exactly.
Now, actually, how did you end up getting? Let's go back a little bit. How did you end up getting into like SEO and all these things? Like, did you? Yeah. Is this your first business,
no,
or
man.
Did you do other stuff in the past?
Yeah, I'm the last person that would be in. You think making money on computers? I actually got a D in computer science in college. So I'm the poster boy for if he can do it, anybody can do it, basically. But I got out of school. This is probably, you guys have heard this. I think I've heard this on one of your other podcasts before, but it's a similar story. I think a lot of folks have. I got into a job right out of school in an insurance company. And I was happy to have it out of school because I was like, cool, I can have my own apartment and stuff right now. But pretty quickly I was like, basically my soul was dying inside of a cubicle. And at the end of like the 3.5, 4 years, I was like, I got to do something different because, the days are too long. I'm miserable. And same story here from everybody else wants to leave. So I ended up like basically probably semi losing my mind and packed all my bags, sold everything and moved to Asia. And I lived in Taiwan for about 10 years altogether. But the first 2 years I went to study Chinese. I was just looking to do something totally different and change my whole life and, do something where I was like, I'm going to do something disruptive to myself so I can, because I really felt like at the end, I was like, I'm going to be trapped. The guys were walking around my office that had been in this insurance company for 20, 30, 40 years. I was like, I can't do this. I'm like, I don't want to get trapped in a skill set where it's like I just change jobs and it's a different color beige or something with a different cubicle.
All this sudden, like 40 years later, and you're still in the same spot.
Yes, and there's like corporate zombie like walking around like unhappy but making money and having to do it. So I did that. I have no regrets now, but that's what I want. I was kind of getting pulled down this one direction, and I just felt I'm gonna do something disruptive in my life, do something totally different. So no regrets. I did that, and it really had kind of changed everything for me, going overseas. Because when I got out of school, I felt when I was in school, I felt like I had a lot of confidence and stuff. But I immediately when I got out, I was like, realized I had anxiety problems and probably some low self-esteem because I really felt hard to talk to people or do anything. I would like start sweating and stuff, and I figured I guess I'm just an introvert or whatever. I just didn't have a lot of confidence. I felt really, really bad about myself, I think, towards the end. But after moving to Asia and learning another language, becoming fluent in Mandarin, learning how to adapt and make friends in a whole new type of thing in a totally different culture. Sometime over that period of 10 years, I got all the confidence I ever needed. Now I feel like I can do anything. So that really helped, I think, in that piece of it. But again, towards the end of that 10 years, what ended up happening is a whole other story I'm not going to get into, but I essentially had a software company fall into my lap in my early 30s in Taiwan, this was. And it was at that time when I saw the power of Google. This is going back 15 years ago, because the software company that I had, we were selling consumer software all over the world, and half of the revenues were coming from affiliate marketers. Again, this is going 15 years ago, and I was having to write checks to people for $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a month that had these simple websites that were forums and stuff. And I was like, how is this happening? It was because people were Googling stuff online, going to their website or the forum answer, clicking on a banner ad, and the big affiliates, we paid 50% of the software sales. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And here we are getting 50% of the sale. We had investors and product support, and our piece of that 50% was almost nothing. Where the guys who are running these websites were probably working an hour a day, and they were just freaking killing it. We were only one of the affiliates. So at that time, it really opened my eyes. I was like, okay, I got to figure this out. I'm not a coder. I'm not a graphic designer, but I see where the ROI trail is, at least online. We ended up moving from overseas, and I came back to Kansas City where I am now because I've got family roots here, and my wife from Taiwan actually loved coming back here. So we ended up moving back here in 2005, and it was nice because when we sold that company, it was a nice payday, but it wasn't buy an island and airplanes and type of a payday. It was just kind of one of these things where I could come back and buy a house and get started on my feet type of deal. But I ended up doing a barter website with this one auto detailer here in town. And it was basically, I had no business doing this. I wasn't a web designer, but I figured, you know what? If I could get this guy a website, he was selling these auto details for to dealers for $25 a car, killing himself, making nothing. And I said, dude, if you had your own website, you could probably sell these details to the consumers for maybe $150, $200, $250 a sale, right? And make more money. So I said, let me tell you something. I made him a promise. I probably shouldn't have. I said, I'm going to build you a website, and we'll do a little barter deal on this thing. And I did. I built him an ugly one-page website in front page because I couldn't figure out how to do it in Dreamweaver, which is another web building type of a thing. And it took me 2 weeks, and I was literally pulling my hair out because I'm not going to be able to do this. But I figured it out, and I uploaded the ugliest one-page website that was purple and yellow you've ever seen. But 60 days later, the guy calls me back. He's like, Phil, I don't know what you've done. You've changed my business. You've changed my life. Phone's ringing off the hook. And I was like, bingo. 35 years old. Now I know what I want to be when I grow up. You know what I mean? And I was like, it was really professionally rewarding. And I was like, I can make some money off of that. So it's that one website that's rolled into all of what I have today. Got a couple more barter deals. People started paying me. They started getting more results, paying us more and more. And it's kind of turned into kind of this full scale agency that we got going now. That has opened a lot of doors and books and little side projects podcast bookers and a few other things. And that's kind of how I got here today.
That's pretty crazy.
That's awesome.
I mean, talk about a complete 180. I mean, just quitting your job and moving to Asia. That's the craziest 180 you could probably do, right?
Yeah, my parents were like,
what are you doing?
You lost? Please come back. What's happened? Are you on drugs? I was like, no, I'm not on drugs.
Yeah, let's because you said you came back and you actually wrote a book for SEO, right, with John?
Yeah, so that just happened 2 years ago, year and a half, 2 years ago.
And you also did the plugin for WordPress, right? I think we actually used that plugin for our website, if I'm not mistaken, which is kind of funny.
We're just releasing the pro version like now. I'm so excited. I just made that for my own purpose in house. I went and looked around. I was like, I can't find one that does how I want to do it. So we made one, and then I put it up on the repository, and it's been downloaded like 130,000 times. Which has caused a lot of different problems. I had people like literally like call the phone, like, will you give us free support on this free plan? I was like, it's just, so that's a whole nother story in and of itself. But yeah, we've got that plugin going. Again, I'm the last guy you'd ever think that would author a plugin.
How did that come about? But you said it's it's something that you wanted, so you just reached out to a developer and had them build it, or?
Well, I have our own we've got a development team in house that we pay, and we're real strong in WordPress already. So we started doing a few of our own kind of custom plugins a few years ago, and I was like, we got to figure out how to do this one, because a big popular thing in SEO right now is voice search and schema. And if you notice when you do Google searches right now, you'll see a lot more info coming up. So there's like whole information boxes about a company on the side, or sometimes if you type in like, what is a recipe for chocolate chip cookies or something, a picture will come up with bullet lists, and you'll just see a lot more information now coming up. It's not just blue text anymore. You'll see review ratings, stuff like that, right? Yeah. So there was really no easy way to put this kind of like schema and stuff on a website that I found that used one of the more modern, frameworks and languages for it. So they're starting to make some right now, but I figured I want to do this for myself in house. I know how we can apply it correctly, and if we apply it correctly, we'll get more search engine bling. And the more search engine bling you get, the more clicks you get. And the more clicks you get, the click-through rate, the better your SEO is, and it kind of works on itself. And plus, not just mention that, it's just wide open. I mean, you apply this kind of code to your website, it's a tiny, tiny fraction of the websites are actually even using it. So it's a lot easier right now to get this extra information as search results. So I didn't want to wait for somebody to do it like they kind of are now. I wanted to get my own one started early on. And that's the reason why we did it, because I saw a lot of value in it. And I still think, voice search is becoming really popular. And the more of this little extra code that they call schema, the more you better tag your website with schema, the better chance you have extra information and potentially a better shot at maybe being a voice answer search for somebody.
So what are some of the features that the plugin has if somebody wants to? Because we use WordPress, because WordPress, it's super easy. I know some HTML here and there, but it's like if you ask me to build a website, there's no way I could put one together.
Yeah, I learned from the outside in too. So it's like it's the schema thing that's out there that it's basically called structured data. So it's like it's this framework of almost like a dictionary of different little pieces of code that you use to like tag your website. So a good example would be like, well, a popular one that everybody wants, including myself, is to get like the star ratings to show up on a search result, because that's awesome. You go down like a page and all of a sudden one of them has like 5 stars on it. Well, it just draws people right to it. Well, one of the ways you get that is because you put a review on your website, let's say on a web page that says, hey, John from this company wrote this review and he gave it 5 stars. Well, the Google robot's not going to come in and say, gosh, that looks like a review, I'm going to pull that and put it up in the search results. It really won't do that unless you go in the back end and tag it. And there's a little like the schema tag where you can kind of attach it on the back end and say that little piece of content on this page is a review. It was written by this guy on this date. He gave it this many stars. When you tag it like that with WordPress or whatever you want and add this little piece of code, you give Google, the robot, a lot more confidence that is actually a review. And then if your page is already pulling up, they'll actually pull that extra information and put that up in there. And that's why that's happening a lot, as people are tagging it. But there's so many things you can tag now, like you can tag your business a local business. It's basically whatever content you have on the page, there's essentially a little tag for it. So if you've got a web page that has a review on it and a video and a recipe, there's little schema code you can attach to it, so they'll pull more stuff into it. So the amount of schema you can put on is really big. My plugin covers quite a bit of them, but it's more focused for like bloggers and local businesses, where I can say, hey, I'm a local business and maybe I do HVAC, so I want the HVAC code on my website for a local business. I want to be able to tag like a blog post, a news article, maybe a recipe, or I want to be able to tag a product. I want to put reviews. So there's certain things that we do and go in there. But I think the problem with people when they go into WordPress, there's so many schema plugins right now that just do a little piece of it. So you can you can find just a review schema plugin, or you can find a recipe plugin, right? I tried to make one that was a little more all-in-one, but the problem is a true all-in-one would be too huge because there's just way too many parts of schema if you go to schema.org and do it. But that's what it is. It's this new kind of a lot of people that use WordPress anyway, a lot of people are used to using some type of SEO plugin. I use Yoast SEO. And if you're familiar with using that, go onto the page, you can set the page title, you can set the meta description. Yeah. Well, the schema plugin that I have is basically the same idea. You go a little bit further down, all of a sudden you form fill. This is a blog post. This was the author. This is the featured image. You tag it like that, and it's just another little layer of SEO code. And again, the reason we do it is because some people think that's a ranking factor on yourself. Because if you mark the page up correctly with SEO code, Google's going to say, "Hey, this page is structured better than another page. Let's give them a few extra points." But more importantly, if it's tagged up correctly, there's a better chance they're going to pull information right from the page and put it directly in the results. And that's really where the true gold is. But most people aren't even using like Yoast, that I find. You know what I mean? They don't. Yeah. You still go up, and we get a lot of clients. You go to the homepage, and their title bar says like home, and then it doesn't even have like the basics on there. But yeah, that's how the plugins work.
What would you say it's like the biggest bang for the buck SEO tip for business owners?
I think if you're going to do anything right now, working on reviews, honestly. Because, especially if you're a local business, any business, if the more you can work into your daily routine where you've got a habit of consistently asking for feedback and some kind of a system to document that so you can collect it, that's what people want to make decisions, is they want to see that other people like you.
Social proof.
You got to have it. It's just, so whether or not you put it on Google or your website, that's been the way people have purchased big ticket stuff for the end of time. Give me a reference call. Can I call somebody? Can I see something? Can I see your little, every once in a while I get a contractor that comes in. It's literally will pull like letters out or pictures of works that they've done on things. Well, it's the same thing online. You just got to document it up there. But I think most people just don't go through the process of asking people on a regular basis. Were you happy? Can I give? Because everybody wants reviews right now. So if you don't have a system in place and a way to like be consistent and tenacious about getting them, what ends up happening is I think businesses become a collection point for negative reviews, because everybody who's unhappy is very incentivized to leave a negative review, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. There's plenty of, most people, if they've had a bad experience, they usually go out of their way to say something bad about it.
But look, you mentioned a product that had 600 reviews. I bet you that product has had tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of sales on Amazon.
Yeah.
But so if you think about it, I think reviews online are actually very rare and very small percentage. Right? Because look, those guys, they have 600. It looks like a ton. Well, it is a ton compared to a lot of other products, but it's not a ton in comparison to how many they've sold. Right. Actually, most people, almost everybody, never leaves them a review. Imagine if they had like 6,000 reviews or something else. But my point is, it's just everybody's the same way. Is like, it's just really hard because they don't work it into the routine, or they don't ask, because people just don't give positive reviews that often in relation to the number of sales that they have.
And it was a very niche product. It's like the battery grip for my camera. It's only somebody who's into photography would even know what that is. Right. So it's like, it's a super niche product. Matt, did you want to go into the questions, or did you have any other?
Yeah. Go on the questions.
I got them right here.
Oh.
So we do this last section of the podcast, the last 15 minutes, where we have sort of like a bunch of flashcards, and we just ask you different random questions.
Yeah.
There's nothing
I'm set up for this.
It's nothing too crazy. It's all about you, so it should be pretty easy.
What is one thing that you find to be true that most people would disagree with?
That's a good one. Man, you really stumped me on that one. That I find to be true that most people disagree with. I'm thinking. Next question. Let me think about that one.
All right. What habits help make you successful?
For me, for sure, waking up early. I'm up usually 4 or 5 in the morning, and that's when I have my energy on, and I get a full day's worth of work in, I feel like, before 9 o'clock, which makes me feel like I can spend the rest of the day working when I'm motivated and doing fun things when I don't have to do.
Ricardo likes that too. He gets up at 5 every morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm usually, like you said, I've done a lot of the stuff that I want to do for the day by like 10. And then I still have the rest of the day. I'm like, oh, perfect.
Yeah. And then when you're motivated, I don't know, that's how I do it. I was like, oh, I'll work on it right now, but I'm going to kick back and do something else, spend time with the kids or whatever. And that's what I do.
What was the worst piece of advice that you ever got?
The worst piece? God, you guys are really stumping me on this one. I'm sure I got plenty of bad advice. I think just in general, the feeling early in the career, like where I had a job, in the first job that I have, it was almost like I got a sense that you didn't want to share information or share some of your skills because it was like job security. So there was more secrecy, I think, in terms of like, hey, don't share your knowledge because that's the way you can be more valuable to whatever company or whatever you're doing. But that's certainly not the way things have evolved. It's almost like now you have to share and give your best advice to do anything these days. So that feels like bad advice that I got early on, but I don't know if that same person would be saying that kind of stuff now because that seems like almost the world or the internet's changed that quite a bit.
Well, yeah, because there's information out there everywhere, and especially as an entrepreneur. Like the more advice you give out, the more you're seen as an expert and your credibility, and then more people search you out for, everything to do business with. What do you do to get you through the tough times? Or why do you do what you do? What gets you through the tough times?
Yeah, I think anytime that I'm having a tough time, I just break away. I really feel like, I think sometimes people might feel like family is stressful or kids are stressful. It seems like, man, if I'm going through a tough time, I just kind of break away and do something fun with the kids. It really just kind of takes me back to, what's important in life, I guess. And that really helps out. I mean, because everybody kind of stumbles on stuff. And I think one of the things I had early in my career is I used to be one of these people that would, if I felt like I had a tough time or somebody wronged me, I would stew on it and use it as an excuse to like say, oh, this person did this and this is the reason I'm failing. It wasn't me, type of thing. And I would just stew on it for a long time and it would just drag me down forever and ever. Now I've been much better about using those opportunities to kind of motivate me to do stuff. But still, if you care about what you do and you fail or you get down, everybody feels like that. It's got to sting somewhat. It means to me, it doesn't feel like I'm like maybe not caring about what I do, but during those times I try and reflect on them and do that kind of stuff. But then I'll also, to me, spending a little bit of time with family doing something fun really kind of puts everything back into perspective. If I get too deep into kind of the dark things on the fails that we all kind of go through, as entrepreneurs.
If you got the chance to start over, what would you do differently?
I would start working on authority and personal branding immediately. And I think everybody should do this immediately too. In fact, when we have recent hires right now, the first thing I tell them is we're going to build you a website and you're going to learn how to do WordPress and you're going to start documenting your career and the things that you're good at now so that you can carry this through the rest so you can start building your own personal branding and authority, which will make you more higher, give you the skill set that you need to maybe do other things later on, whether you stay with us or not. Because personally, I found that that's really helped me out. I mean, at the end, there's a great article, I think it's in Forbes, or I'll send it to you guys, how they say how the companies are starting to act more like people and people are starting to act more like companies. So it's like this personal branding authority type of thing that's really taking shape. And it's like you were just saying, Matthew, I mean, at the end of the day, we're sharing stuff, we're trying to educate, and that's the reason why people want to choose us, right? We're stacking the deck in terms of social proof and our own expertise. And when you do that and position yourself that way, then it makes it easier for people to choose you, because I want the authority and the expert work with his team and the other guy that maybe hasn't worked on that kind of stuff. And that's what I wish I would have done differently, because I'm here in my 40s right now, and I just wish I would have been working on that much earlier, because it now that I see how much payoff it has, it's like, wow. But it's never the good news is I think it's never too late to start, because I don't think this is ever going to change.
Have you ever turned down a client, and if so, why?
Yeah, in fact, I'm turning one right down just now. I get the email that he just sent me right now, and that's mostly because sometimes in a tough situation where when you do SEO for somebody, you do a really good job, you get other people coming in that want to do work. And in my case, I'm in Kansas City. A lot of our clients are local to this. So if I've got a tree company that does really well, and some other tree company says, I want you to do what you did for me for him, then even though we don't really have exclusivity or something, I'm at the point where it's like, gosh, if I take this guy on who's mentioned, I hope you never work for this guy, then I can't work with them. But it's really tough. For me, this is maybe a $10,000 setup fee that our new website that I would get for him, and maybe $2,000 to $3,000 a month that I'm turning away to essentially stay with a client who actually pays less because he's been with me longer. I'm turning him away on that case. It does sting a little. It feels good to have that kind of loyalty, because I just locked down this one guy I told him, I said, this is your main competitor. He wants me. He's willing to pay a lot more than you are, type of a thing. And I told him I'm going to tell him no, but I was like, dude, you better realize what I'm giving up here. And that's the reason. I don't know if that really kind of a great reason, but you asked, and that was really timely, because I'm literally after this show, I'm going to call the other guy that wants to hire me and say, I just can't do it because I can't find any way. And I'm not sleazy, I don't want to be sleazy. I want people's loyalty and that kind of stuff. But that's the reason. But there's other ones, the other thing with personal branding and authority and doing your own SEO, like most of our clients come from people looking for SEO services and finding us, or referrals. The one thing I love about working on expertise and authority and trust and your own website is we never have to negotiate, really, which enables us to cherry pick clients enough. So we will, if somebody's not ideal, then we'll say no. So a lot of times people will come to us and I can tell like they really want to throw like almost all their eggs in our basket and hope for the best. Well, that's not the best way to get started, right? If somebody says, I'm going to give you all this money, maybe I've got enough for 2 or 3 months of a campaign, we turn that down all the time, because, to do SEO or marketing, right, you've got to be able to fund that for at least like a year, 6 months or a year to really get a return out of it. So we will turn people away for that kind of thing too. So we turn clients away on that basis. It's like, you don't just want to be able to, for me, we don't want to just be able to collect whatever fees that we can unless we know that we can get the results later. So we'll turn clients away all the time if they say, where you can tell they're just like almost like rolling the dice type of a deal. But I think that's a credit to the system of, again, personal branding and authority, because the more you get out there, the more you're perceived as an authority, the less people come back and say, they might have the budget to say a $10,000 website, but they're going to try and negotiate and say, well, you do it for $5,000. Well, we just always say, this is our price and that's it. And we stand by it. And a lot of times we don't have to negotiate. I think some of the reason we're able to hold that and do that is because we've got great reviews. We've written books. We're doing podcasts. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff, when you build that up, really makes it good, and it enables you to almost, I hate to say cherry pick good clients, but that almost what it becomes down to. I think everybody wants to be in a position to do that.
Yeah, you don't want to bring your prices down and give someone less value that hurts your product. And then, if they quit, a few months down the line, then they feel like they didn't get enough value out of it. And then you have bad word of mouth, on the streets. And yeah,
exactly. It's like negotiating that cheapens your service. And also another trap is like giving anything. I used to do this to my detriment in the past, which is like giving here's some extra thing. As soon as you start giving some stuff away free or services, it's like this slippery slope of, you become less and less valuable. And I think that has to do with negotiating on pricing. You have to do a good price, but you have a price, work is going to take. To me, it's like you almost got to stick to it. Now, getting started, I did whatever it was to get good reviews and kick butt. So I invested in myself. I bartered. I did it for free. I drew lines in the sand. So I wasn't like an indentured, consultant forever. But at some point, when you've got that track record, it's nice to be able to go in and not have to, and feel good about it. I never feel bad if somebody's like, if we lose somebody on price because they're just like, we quoted 10, they wanted 7, and they said, well, and we had somebody come back last year that said, you know what? We revisited this. We want to talk to you. We want to give you another opportunity to quote your price if your prices have gone down at all. I said, no, they've actually gone up by $2,000. Thank you. Type of thing. So I'm not trying to be smug or anything, but it's just the way it is, because I know we're busy enough as it is with the work that we coming in. And I think, again, it all kind of circles back to having a good website, working on your SEO, doing things like you guys are doing with podcasting and making books and increasing your branding and authority. And then sometimes it's good to be in a position where you can turn away projects and clients that aren't ideal.
Definitely.
If you had one piece of advice to someone just starting out, what would it be? And you can apply that towards any part of your business. I'm
going to say, again, start working on personal branding authority, but that's a repeat, so I don't want to get off the hook that easily. The one piece of advice that I got, I think that's really helped me out the most is one of my first jobs in high school, this guy told me, I'm going to paraphrase, I don't want to say curse words on the show, but he basically said, anybody can be a jerk, except he used a different word than jerk. He said, anybody can be a jerk, but it takes effort to be a nice guy. And I think that really has helped me quite a bit. And it's good advice that I carry with me since I was like 16 till now, that I still think about this to this day, because I think in today's environment, people think there's some nobility or some reason to flame or to put somebody down or to argue or to be a loose cannon. But I think what really helps people is restraint, because you get to a certain part of your life, it's easy for us to kind of, if we don't like something or something, to put somebody down and to go off the handle and like yell and scream and lose your temper and that kind of stuff. That's easy to do. That's the way most people like do it now. But having that ability to like restrain yourself, tell yourself this is the best that I can do, try and diffuse the situation and move on as quick as you can, learn from it and don't stew about it. That's what's released me to do tons of stuff, because again, I was so locked down in worrying about how people wronged me in the past. Like, this guy, you try to put me down, didn't respect me, this and that, and just, or I lost this client, and just would stew about it for like hours or days and that kind of stuff. Being able to put that behind you as quickly as possible and move on, I think, because that's just a lot of negative energy you could be using to come up with another idea or invest it in some other entrepreneurial thing or do more work, right? Versus trying to kind of stew in that kind of stuff. So for me, that's the best piece of, I guess, kind of advice for somebody starting out is, learn from the negative experiences, don't stew on them. And think about that. It takes anybody can be a jerk, but it takes effort to be a nice guy or gal.
It's not worth your time to get on a pissing contest with somebody who doesn't deserve it.
Agreed.
We'll go back to that question from the start.
So I got the same non-answer.
See if you got it. What is one thing you find to be true that most people would disagree with?
That I find to be true? I know I've got a good answer for this in here somewhere. I think in my industry and my space, I think a lot of people think, like in terms of, let's say, SEO and Google, that SEO is this one thing and there's this one recipe and you do these things according to what the experts or what Google says, and that's the way to do SEO or do marketing. My personal opinion, though, is that, because I've seen this personally, is Google and digital is there's many ways to skin the cat. So I can do things that help me out on Google and do it this one way that are different from maybe this other SEO guy or guru or service. And we can end up both getting good results, but get there a totally different way. And maybe our recipes are different. And I think a lot of people in the industry, in the space, might not think that way. They think, oh, I've got the book to show you. Here's the art of SEO or some book out there that says you got to do things this way. And that's the only way to achieve them. And I think that's one of the lessons out there with digital and SEO in general. Just remember, hire somebody or you do something for anything, hire them based on talent and their own social proof, but understand that, a lot of these ways people sell things these days, I think, and you guys have maybe seen this. I see it a lot in the business that we sell is like, I'll do something for a client, and then every day the client gets bombarded with other people selling services or something, telling them how bad they're doing their website or their SEO or this, you know what I mean? It's like, when the client trusts me, it's like they know that I'm doing the right thing and they're kind of being sold out there. But I think the important things to realize is that, there's different ways to skin a cat in anything really, and especially in digital marketing.
Okay, last question. What was your favorite failure? Is there one that set you up for future success?
I think in a way, yeah, that first job of essentially felt like a failure in my first job out of school in that insurance job, because I just felt like I worked hard. I tried to overcome things by going in early and staying late. But I really just didn't feel like I had the skill set, and I think I lost a lot of confidence that way. But it really felt like, I probably made that change because I probably felt that I failed pretty bad, because I didn't feel really good about myself towards the end of that first job. And falling that hard set me up, to make a drastic change in my life. So I can't really look at it but that's kind of the one thing. Is it? And the one thing I think I'd say this also. I don't know what the listening range of your listeners are, but one thing I look about like right now is I don't think people realize how influential the first steps of the first career that you have, like say out of college or whatever it is, once you step into the real world, whether it's high school or whatever. Because it's almost like, I could have easily just been sucked down this insurance path had I not like broken out of it. And I think a lot of people just take the first job that's out there because it's like, I got to start paying the bills. And they don't realize all of a sudden they just start going down somebody else's destiny. You know what I mean? Because that first job had so much influence on the way that the road that was kind of put in front of them, that thing. And I think that's also kind of just an important point to make.
Awesome. Well, thank you, man, for doing this. It's pretty much it for the podcast. Really appreciate you giving us your time. Where can people find you online?
Check out KCWebDesigner.com. Yeah. KCWebDesigner.com is a good one because that's the little website that kind of pays the bills and started it all. But also, we talked about EAT and the Google Search Quality Evaluator guidelines. I actually tried to apply all the guidelines to my website. So if you want to look at that document, you can kind of see an example of somebody that's applied it, and it really worked for my site and more traffic. But that's KCWebDesigner.com. SEOforgrowth.com, that's the book that we wrote. I wrote with John. And then podcastbookers.com that you mentioned, Ricardo, is our guesting service. That's one of those things, though, that I think people can DIY. There's something like 400,000 podcasts out there. A lot of them are looking for guests. So, if you want to start positioning yourself, when I told you personal branding and authority are like the most important things you should be doing as a young person right now, I think, well, guesting is the best way to get out there and get in front of people, right? Get a website, write an ebook, start pitching yourself to maybe some mid-level, smaller podcasts, start getting out there. All of a sudden, other people are saying you're an expert in this or you've got experience in this thing. All of a sudden, you start building your person. That's something you could do on your own with your own outreach process. You literally just go research, look for podcasts and say, hey, you're on this show. I have this to do it. So if you're an established business and you don't have somebody in-house that can do the outreach, then podcastbookers.com is a great place to go, but there's other guesting services out there. But that's one of those little secret things that, you can actually pitch yourself if you want to bootstrap and do some of that. So I know a lot of people do, but that's the other place, podcastbookers.com. Check it out. Oh, and you mentioned the plugin, WPSEOschema.com. Just type in WPSEO Schema on WordPress or check out Ricardo's site and look, do a source look on his site. It sounds like they're using it.
Oh, and then you'll have a podcast as well. So let's
local business leaders.
And then what do you guys talk about that on that podcast?
Well, it's interesting on that one is that half the people that we talk to are marketers and other podcasters and stuff like that. So I can just literally kind of probably what you guys do to some extent. Half of my audience, I'm actually trying to get guests so I can pick their brain and steal good ideas from and apply it to my own business. The other half I do for access here locally because I tried to hire my own outbound team. Last year, I hired a girl with a little bit of sales, lady with a little bit of sales experience, and she made like 40, 50 phone calls a day for 4 months, and we got one meeting and no sales.
Wow.
But then I was like, okay, podcast, cool. If I have the local business leaders podcast, which I named on purpose, something like that.
Right.
I had somebody start to call local CEOs in town, and where they call up people 40 times a day and say, oh, we've got this, we can help you, we can build you a new website, 40 times a day. You call up and say, can I interview your CEO to be on the local business leaders podcast? It's like 9 out of 10. You get to talk to somebody, you know what I mean? So it's a great access, which I'm sure you guys have.
That's basically how we do our podcast.
Exactly. So I learned from guys like you that have already been doing it. But so I use it for 2 reasons. Interview executives the secondary reason is access, but also to kind of pick their brain on entrepreneurial stuff. And then the other one is to actually try and talk to people to get good marketing tips and hacks that I know are doing it right.
Awesome. Thanks, Phil. This is awesome.
I hope so. You guys really let me go on and on, so I hope there was a few nuggets in there.
We're great listeners, man. I think my listening skills have gone up probably twofold since we started the podcast. But yes.
I'm kind of a spaz. I really appreciate it.
I'll stop the recording now. Thanks, man. Till next time, guys.
Thanks a lot.
And that's it for another episode of the podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. One last thing before you head off though. Please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave us your thoughts on iTunes. It would really mean a lot and help us reach more people. You can also find us on Facebook at Profits Over Wages Podcast, as well as on Instagram and YouTube. Until next time.